We often treat post-colonial cinema as a mere thematic genre. In practice, it operates as a deeply structural grammar. Deepa Mehta's 2012 film adaptation of Midnight's Children provides a specific framework for analyzing how this grammatical shift functions on screen. Salman Rushdie's original 1981 novel presents a massive translation challenge, defined by a level of linguistic and historical excess that resists simple visualization. Western cinematic conventions frequently struggle with post-colonial texts. Standard adaptations often attempt to force fragmented, overlapping histories into objective and linear narrative arcs. Mehta's adaptation succeeds by manifesting post-colonial theory through its editing rhythms, its layered sound design, and its narrator's calculated unreliability. Analyzing this structure requires examining three specific theoretical pillars: Homi Bhabha's theory of identity, Partha Chatterjee's model of national history, and Rushdie's own approach to language. To understand the film, we must move past the plot and observe how abstract literary theory is transformed into a lived visual reality. The first pillar is identity. Homi K. Bhabha's concept of the third space suggests that cultural translation does not happen in a vacuum, but in a specific zone of intersection. The film visualizes this theory through the birth switch. A nurse named Mary Pereira swaps two infants, Saleem and Shiva, at the exact moment of India's independence. This diagram illustrates their rigid biological origins. One child is born into immense wealth, the other into absolute poverty. Their life paths are represented here as parallel, non-intersecting lines. When Mary Pereira swaps the infants, she severs these biological trajectories. Their inherited environments and class positions are forcibly exchanged. This intersection point creates Bhabha's third space, a zone where fixed identities become unstable and new negotiated meanings emerge. By focusing on this switch, Mehta presents class, politics, and culture as performative constructs rather than fixed biological inheritances. Saleem and Shiva inhabit this duality. They represent a negotiated post-colonial reality that cannot be reduced to a single origin point. This prompt from a university screening worksheet directs viewers to analyze exactly how these identities become hybridized across biological, social, and political lines. In this framework, identity is never purely inherited. It is a condition that must be continuously negotiated based on historical circumstance. This leads to our second pillar, history. The film asks whether the authority to narrate a nation belongs to the state archive or to the flawed memory of the individual. Partha Chatterjee's critique of Eurocentric nationhood points out that Western models rely on linear timelines and stable borders, concepts that do not align with the reality of India's birth. Chatterjee argues that Indian nationalism splits social life into two domains. The top layer is the material domain of statecraft and borders. The bottom, organic layer is the spiritual domain of domestic culture and family memory. Saleem acts as a counter-history. His personal memory pierces through the material domain, linking subjective domestic experiences directly to the objective record of the state. This conflation is immediate. The film synchronizes Saleem's birth with the real-world footage of Jawaharlal Nehru's Tryst with Destiny speech. Later, Saleem's physical and narrative unraveling mirrors the 1975 emergency, a period where democratic freedom in India was suspended by the state. During the emergency, state-led slum demolitions and forced sterilization programs targeted marginalized citizens, attempting to physically erase cultural pluralism. Mehta's editing reinforces Chatterjee's domains by constantly cutting between macro-political violence and micro-domestic spaces. Because official history relies on a sanitized objectivity, Saleem's fractured personal account becomes a more honest reflection of a divided nation. The third pillar focuses on language, specifically the English language used to narrate this story. English arrived in India as a tool of colonial authority. Thomas Macaulay's 1835 policy explicitly used English education to create a class of loyal administrative intermediaries. Salman Rushdie counters this with chutnification, a deliberate subversion of the colonizer's tongue. Chutnification acts as a pickling process. In this waveform, you can see Standard English being forcefully blended with the syntax and rhythms of Indian languages. Mehta adopts this orally. Characters slide between English, Hindi, and Urdu. The languages actively alter and infect each other rather than simply sitting side by side. This worksheet includes a task asking students to translate this chutnified English back into its standard form to see what is lost in translation. Standardization acts as a form of erasure. It removes the vital evidence of the cultural negotiation happening within the speech itself. Language belongs to those who remake it. Like the nation itself, it is a permanently hybridized space. These three pillars, hybrid identity, subjective counterhistory, and chutnified language, form a single unified framework. These concepts merge into an interlocking ring. Their primary function is the systematic rejection of cultural purity. This framework explains Saleem's narrative unreliability. He misremembers dates, admits his own errors, and delivers his account with a self-aggrandizing tone. These narrative flaws function as deliberate political features designed to resist the homogeneity of the post-colonial state. An objective narrator would simply reproduce the voice of the colonial textbook, effectively silencing marginalized perspectives. The telepathic collective of the Midnight's children serves as a metaphor for democratic pluralism, a cacophony of voices that the authoritarian state attempts to silence. We see this pluralism physically threatened on screen as the machinery of the state begins crushing these miscellaneous cultural histories into the dirt. The film forces us to consider this specific question. What does it mean to belong to a post-colonial nation that speaks in a colonizer's tongue and carries the burden of fractured identities? Post-colonial cinema treats the condition of being in between and unreliable as a truthful grammar, the only one capable of imagining a plural, democratic future.